I'm here. I'm here. I'm hoping I have sound. It was one of those days. Welcome to Nightcap. We're live. I got a green screen, but I'm leaving it there. Don't worry about it. I'm going to keep it because I got rounded corners today. All right. And that's a big deal for me. So I'm just going to celebrate the round corners. Welcome to Nightcap. It's Monday, and tonight I'm going to talk about cowardice. I didn't get to put out a placard. I was a minute late, I believe, on my time. I think I've missed a minute. We're not going to count it because my clock says 3:31. I know it's fast. We didn't miss a beat yet, folks. I apologize about the late call. I want to have a perfect record with you, and you probably thought I was going to miss tonight, but I wasn't. Anyway, excuses aside, I'll cut that in the edit. Um, Cowardice. And I want to talk about that because that is an issue that probably makes most of us look at politics and get numb pretty quickly. You see a politician promise something, they say they're going to do something that you believe in, they get elected, they don't do shit. And that happens over and over and over. And so politicians get the reputations for being a liar, for not keeping their promises. And to folks that don't pay attention a lot, they see the ads, they look at something, they look at one thing, and let's say that's the issue. Let's say it's a gun issue, or it's an abortion issue, or it's a what I would say a woman's reproductive health issue. Whatever you label that issue, you decide to vote for someone, and then that person or entity, whatever you believe in, they decide to change their mind. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this makes me numb. Quite frankly, it makes me numb looking out there and seeing that consistently politicians don't meet what they're supposed to do. They don't follow through. And so you think, well, I would do it differently. And so Donald Trump led his campaign, I'm going to drain the swamp. But Barack Obama, change and hope. And that's typically some version of change campaign is what wins the election. Somebody that says they're going to do something different, and it never changes. And I want to talk about that. I post very provocative audiograms in the past declaring that men are cowards. I'm not sure I was wrong. But I stand by the fact that consistently we look and we see these folks fail us. And so when I decided to come up with tonight's topic, I wanted to get a little bit meaty and not just kind of yell and scream and drop F-bombs, and get into kind of the reasons for why this consistently happens. Maybe there's some excuses. A lot of it has to do with us, but I'm going to walk through those reasons. And then I'm also going to talk about some instances where it paid off to stand by your word. And then I'm going to walk through some instances where people lost their shit and they paid consequences, personal consequences, when they stood by their word. My only argument with all of these different outcomes, whether you stood by your word and paid a consequence, or where you didn't stand by your word and you didn't pay a consequence, it's not, to me, it's standing by your word and fighting for that and doing it to the point where you believe in it. Now, if you run into situations where there are reasons, maybe justifications for why you can't get it done, but I'm not talking about that as being a necessarily cowardice. So I'm going to talk about those issues as being reasons that could make somebody reasonably not able to get something done and not able to fulfill their promise. Why am I going through this? Because this nuance is important to understand. When a president doesn't fulfill their obligations or those things that you really count on, did they really try? Is it a flip-flop? Does it matter? It does matter. Because right now, Joe Biden's on the chopping block by the youngsters who are saying, well, he didn't commit. He's not doing what we need to in the Congo and everything else. And they're right. They're right. They're standing on the indignant righteousness, which I talked about before. You have to also look at the things that he can do and did do, as well as why some of those things that you want can't be done by someone else. As I said in my previous rant, focused on the youngsters, thinking that sitting out this election right now is a good idea, even though I stand by their protests in every single way. I don't stand by the protest vote. Go back and watch that one. But it's important to understand that it's not necessarily cowardice in some instances. And so I'm going to make an argument that some of these things are institutional and some of these things are cowardice. And I'm going to talk about that. And it's an honest discussion. Please make a comment if you think Joe Biden or Trump or somebody else stood by their word and it benefited us or them or whatever. This is an interesting conversation because this really comes down to, if you think about it, why you should vote one way or the other, why you should continue to switch parties or switch candidates. I'm not saying switch parties necessarily. I know this tonight, you're probably thinking, where the fuck am I going? But I promise you, cowardice is the theme. Why are politicians cowards? Why do we consistently think that they fail us? And are there legitimate reasons for their failure? It's election time. People are coming up. I mean, Lloyd Smucker, our local representative, is up for election. Did he meet his promises? It's worth a look. And I'm going to do a whole thing on Mr. Smucker and the local politicians. I'm not going to do local politicians right now. I've stayed away from. I should talk more local, but I'm not talking local because, you know, they can be vindictive, I think. But not only that, that's a whole nother topic. Maybe we'll talk local next time. But I just want to talk about the meta of cowardice. I mean, locally, I have thrown, since Lloyd was on the national stage arguing against the vote, trying to disenfranchise us. That, to me, is a clear-cut failure of duty. We just make assumptions that you're going to not try to discount our votes. That's an assumption. So when you did that, to me, that was a major failure. Definitely didn't make me numb. It pissed me off because it's like, how are you going to win? And then also on the same ballot claim that somebody else is, oh, there's problems, we need to recount. Oh, but I won. Come on, stop that bullshit. Stop. That pissed me off. I know I shouldn't go on a rant, but you know what I do here? I rant and rave about shit that pisses me off. And that pissed me off the most. Lloyd's a good guy personally. He's a gentleman. I don't like the way he votes. I don't like his politics. So that's why I don't go local. So I get mad. But it's important to go through. And so let me pull up my notes here so I don't just go way off the island here. You know, it's probably the most important reason why I wanted to talk about this was because of accountability. And to me, that's something that we have to hold them to. And that's pisses me off a lot because that doesn't happen. We vote for the president and then we fall off. And usually the president loses whatever house they won because everyone's like, oh, the presidential race, all the big money's spent. No one cares about 2 years in, so they lose. And this is where accountability, we fail as people because we don't give a shit. It's boring. I know this is boring. You'd rather watch some other shit. I know it's not exciting. I get it. We're going to make it more exciting. Trust me. I'm looking at the YouTube algorithm to get to the top. I got to do some whiz bang, shebang zang. Curved. You guys can't even see my curves, can you? Curved corners is one thing. Trust me. Curved corners, believe it or not, it's going to elevate me to the top. I'm going to get a new subscriber. Where was I? Accountability. And if you don't hold the folks accountable, it doesn't matter. None of this matters. And so some of the reasons why these folks break promises is political gridlock. We know that one comes and goes. We know right now, especially depending on the president, depending on who's running the media narrative, political gridlock is just something that happens because parties disagree. They're wheeling and dealing behind the scenes. And that happens, and that sometimes can't be prevented. Now, you could argue that a strong leader would go in there and bust heads or whatever you got to do, LBJ style. What is it, Thaddeus Stevens style? Whatever, you're gonna go in there, just get it done, kind of shit. Um, but I think that there is some notable reasons why, let's say, yours truly. Yeah, what if I ran? What if I ran and won or lost? But I ran, just hypothetical. I'm not thinking about running. Calm down. People get fucking politicians and get weird locally too, especially when you say that when you work for them. But if I'm saying I'm going to do certain things and there's nothing I can do, no one will vote with me, even if no, it's the best idea, and my constituents put me in for that reason. That gridlock could be my fault. I mean, it could be a reason why I wouldn't do it. Now, you could argue that what issue is so strong that no one else will agree with it and I can't get a coalition? Is the issue worth standing for? Why did I run on that issue? Is that issue something worth fighting for, and would I compromise on it? There are a lot of issues that you can compromise on. You have to understand that in order to get stuff done, not everything is cowardice. You have to be able to get things done. I'm not talking this way because I'm running. I swear on my life, nothing. I'd rather be a YouTube fucking phenom a la Rush Limbaugh than fucking ever get near politics. I would get angry. I would get very angry with the stupid people that don't agree with this reasonable law that we're trying to pass. It's going to benefit millions. That would bother me that we couldn't just do that. I would go nuts. But that can happen because of the gridlock. And so that's one reason. Priorities of how things work. Let's say you're going to office and next thing you know, you run into a situation where you have a crisis, some kind of crisis, or something happens in foreign policy, and now priorities shift. And that's nothing you can do. The legislative table changes. You're not Speaker of the House, or you are, or maybe your party is. Again, these issues that you're fighting for, why are they getting put to the back burner? Can we do two things at once? I would argue, but that can happen. The Speaker of the House can change the priorities. Oftentimes, feasibility can be an issue where, if you believe in something and the feasibility, it's an ambitious idea. Certainly, it won't be. Now, this to me would be an unreasonable thing to run on. If you haven't thought about the feasibility of something and really gone through it, then I don't know if that's a reasonable reason to suggest that you couldn't get something done. Well, the feasibility. Well, what the fuck were you doing when you went in? I mean, do it Elizabeth Warren style. If you don't know, that woman gets her stuff done. She knows what the fuck she's doing. She dots her I's, crosses her T's, and backs it up with numbers. Every time you dig, it's real shit. That, to me, suggests that the person hasn't done any feasibility. And so I'm going to argue that why did you run on that? If you didn't think, and I don't know, I mean, why would you back a policy that's not feasible or you haven't thought about any reasonable way to do it? We can just print money. That's a feasibility solution. Not saying it's a good one, but certainly feasibility is another one. Special interest groups, we know damn well as soon as you fire up an issue, there's going to be an opposition to it, and there's going to be a special interest group that's getting paid to oppose it. And I got to say something about special interest groups. As somebody who understands their need, understands that a lot of nonprofits rely on special interest groups, I don't have any problem with special interest groups. There's a special interest group near me. I think they're good things. I don't think they're bad. So before you think I'm going to say something bad about special interest groups, I don't think they're bad. What I do think is bad is that special interest groups are an offshoot of something more nefarious, which is bribery. And what special interest groups do is they form a coalition and they generate money and they lobby our politicians and they lobby and they create and they get people to motivate. I'm not saying there's anything bad about special interest groups again, but all of these are offshoots of something called bribery. Now you're going to say, well, special interest groups aren't bribery. Okay, well, what are they doing? What are they ultimately doing? They're lobbying their congressman, usually in the form of some kind of monetary contribution. I mean, let's be honest. It's pay to play here. And so special interest groups can be good and bad. And they are an offshoot of this bribery system that we have that suggests that, oh, this issue has to get attention. The only way to get attention is by paying these folks. And so to me, special interest groups wouldn't exist in a perfect system. And maybe that system is AI. By the way, let me fucking just present AI as a legislator. Hello, please, seriously, let's consider removing our legislators and putting AI in. Don't even fucking suggest it's a bad idea. It's a fantastic idea. Trust me, it's fantastic. I don't care about the bias, all that shit. Much better than a fucking real legislator. For real. Come on, guys. We could literally have better representation than the clowns we have, paying them, lobbying them, all that bullshit. We could have laws being automated, generated, voted on by us. It could be fucking dope. In Nate's world that we'll talk about in the future, you'll have to listen to the podcast when it rolls out, because I will deliver utopia, and it will not rely on some biased legislator who may or may not wake up or decide to pay attention to the issue that many people are dealing with. Why would I want that fucking system when we could have a data-driven system that says, oh, wait, this issue is affecting, as our baseline driver to remove the lowest class, eradicate, not kill or maim or meme, but remove them so that we level them up. If that's the prime directive in Nate's AI, we should call it Nate's AI in case I pass before it gets done. The legislative body, I would like it named after me. If I don't live for this, it should be something. I only want it named after me because I'm coining it live, okay? It's not because I think I'm going to invent it. It's just, I mean, I will die on that hill. All right, that's a nice little tangent for you. I'm just hating on the bribery, and that kind of leads me down that path. The complexity of the legislative process, that's another one that's kind of linked to gridlock. Sure, that's not really cowardice if you can't get something done. But I would argue that, come on, we got to get some fucking coalition. It's got to be an issue. We got to sell these issues. And I know it's hard to do that. And part of that is the screaming that we can't do anymore. Legislators got to have a social media presence. They got to be blasting stuff on their own. And then you got to have them vetted. It's a whole fucking shit show we got right now on access. And then how do you get, I can put out my own propaganda. And if I'm a legislator, which I'm going to, and how do I get checked on that when I'm already putting lives out all the time and I'm arguing that I'm transparent? I mean, it's fucking crazy, right? That's a whole bunch of shit. Party conflicts, the party decides to shift gears and all of a sudden now you get voted in on universal health care. Next thing you know, and you end up being, the party says, oh, fuck it. We can't do that. We got to do this half-assed bullshit heritage style mandate kind of private hybrid thing where there is no public option, but we're going to mandate that people buy into it anyway. Which is fine. However, why not just make it taxes and make it universal? I don't know. But you know what I mean? So you have kind of shifts in how to get things done. And now all of a sudden you run on universal health care. And now your party's no longer on that shift. Am I a coward now because I ran on this and now my party's no longer behind it? There's no fucking way I'm going to get it done. So that's not really cowardice either. These are legitimate reasons I'm going through, by the way, not necessarily cowardice. Okay, we'll get to the fucking cowardice part. You got to hang in there. If you're like, what the hell's today's point? There's going to be some juicy tidbits as I weave this story, as I pull you in closer. Judicial interventions. We know that the Republicans really outplayed the Democrats last time with Trump by placing judges, massive amounts of judges, dropping bombs on every fucking district across the country, placing judges. The reason is because that can be useful in thwarting the opposition. Judicial intervention, activist judge, activist judicialism, the activist judges, activist judism, judicial activism. Boom, judicial activism. Got it. All right. That's a big one, though. And Republicans, as I said before, they definitely outplayed Democrats in that election. And it's going to play useful should Trump win, as I've stated before, when he wins, because he will have judges all over the place to just rubber stamp and intervene on any counterbalance or any countersuits against the law that he might pass. Very, very smart play by Republicans, really planning ahead. By the way, Republicans have been planning ahead with judges for a long time. Look at the Federalist Papers, look at the Federalist Society, whatever the hell. They've been kind of grooming Republican candidates for judicial Supreme Courts and district judges all across the country. I believe that's what it is. I'll do a whole podcast on that. That's foresight. Republican Party is outplaying the Democrats in that arena. Look it up. They slaughtered. Mitch McConnell loved Trump while Trump was creating a Gatling gun of scandal that press had to focus on. He was rubber stamping and getting judges and even avoiding normal process and protocol to get it done. And it's going to pay off. And Republicans are ballers. They goose step like motherfuckers. Democrats, we got to let everyone involved and everything else. And we're just fucking colors of Benetton. Everyone gets a fucking vote and nothing gets done. Republicans are like, we'll follow this guy. He seems strong. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, but Republicans are more susceptible to dictatorships than the fucking strong man, Trump. Democrats are more like, we just can't get shit done because we have too many coalitions of whatever. Both parties suck at getting shit done. And then you have the inner, they did it. That was the other team came up with it. Can't vote for it, even if it's a good idea, even if it's hurting me. Economic constraints. I feel like that's one that would fall into something where you can't really decide. Let's say I get voted in and the economics, it was feasible. So I thought about how we're going to pay for it. And now all of a sudden the economics don't work because of something happened, a catastrophe, a catastrophe happened, or some event that changed the economics where it's just not feasible now. Now you have different constraints. That might be something where I'm saying, I'll accept that. That's not cowardice, right? Lack of political will, that one falls into cowardice. But also sometimes it can fall on the folks that are electing said politician, because if they lack the political will to fight on, that can be problematic. That would suck if I was doing this whole thing with sound off. I don't think I am. Anyway, sorry. Green screen's fine. I'm not worried about it. I got rounded corners, so if you're seeing this and you're just like, what the fuck? I'm just happy that it's green screening. All right. Anyway, I'm all over the place. Electoral calculations, promises made for short term. This one's a bullshit one. This one's definitely one that I would call falls under the cowardice belt. You say you're going to do something and then you don't do it because you calculate that you can't. It will get you elected, but you change your mind. That one, pure cowardice, lack of political will, and electoral calculations, as my little editor liked to say. It's just votes. You're just promising for votes. And I can get into some examples, some big ones. George Bush paid a price. George H.W. Bush paid a price. No new taxes. Read my lips. Read my lips. No new taxes. Say it again. Read my lips. I can't do a George H.W. impression, but he did raise taxes and probably contributed to his loss. Now, it's interesting because those taxes that Reagan lowered, he had to deal with. Reagan tried to basically was the first one to really take a hard slap at taxes, corporate taxes. Of course, we had to ended up winding them back slowly. Even during Reagan's term, he had to raise taxes to get back some of the revenue that he lost. And then, of course, same thing, because Reagan had just done that, George H.W. was like, all right, no more new taxes. Well, he had to as well, because the Reaganomics was already failing right away. We'll just see it through. It's going to take years. That's what they fucking told us. Eventually it'll trickle down. Bullshit. Barack Obama said he was going to close Guantanamo Bay. And that's a big one. If you're a human rights advocate and you believe in Maslow's hierarchy of needs being important, meaning everyone has the basics, you shouldn't be sheltered. You shouldn't be tortured. You should be, fed. You should be clothed. You should be kept warm with shelter. No torture. No other human should be doing things to you. Caged in unclean conditions. But he didn't. It still remains open today. Donald Trump and his wall said he was going to build the wall, and said he was going to have Mexico pay for it. Never did. Some of the wall was constructed, but Mexico never paid. We know that one. Joe Biden said he was going to withdraw from Afghanistan. Guess what? It was a fucking shit show. Significant criticism came in his way from doing that. I'm sorry if I'm looking at my notes here. Now, sometimes politicians will actually pay the price when they decide to stand by their word. So when George W. Bush said no new taxes, that probably ended up coming back to his 1992 backlash, because he stood by his word towards the end. Wait, hold on a second. I'm just seeing here. Politicians who stood by their word and paid the price. Yeah, he paid the price. I mean, he lost in 1992, but that probably was because he raised taxes. I don't think it was because he didn't give new taxes. He did raise taxes. Maybe not right towards the end. I don't remember. I'm going to throw that fact out. Jimmy Carter has been focusing on human rights, and that's kind of been a stain on him. He still stands by Palestine. That cost him a lot. I don't know much about Gerald Ford. I know he pardoned Nixon. I know that was a lot of backlash and probably why he lost. This is before my time. This is before, these are like old things that happened. But I thought they were interesting. Al Gore's a more current one. He claimed to be the climate guy, and that cost him the election because it kind of divided folks. These are borderline. These aren't really huge payouts, but I think they probably happen more to local folks, meaning like if you look at the Congress folks, it probably happens more often to those. But I don't think it does right now. I don't believe that there's been congressmen that have been challenged by standing by their word and lost. Maybe you can find it. Most of them have resigned, or they resigned beforehand. It's very rarely where they lose because they stand by their word. But I don't know. Maybe they don't stand by the word. Let me just look more at my facts. Those aren't good. Let me go get some better ones. I had a whole bunch. I mean, look, repeal and replace Obamacare. These are all Trump. I can do Obama too. Build the wall, make Mexico pay for it, drain the swamp. He didn't really drain shit. He got deeper into it, made it easier for lobbyists and industry insiders to move on. Never released his tax returns, didn't eliminate the national debt, didn't lower the trade deficit, didn't bring back manufacturing jobs, didn't protect Social Security. He actually proposed to cut Social Security and Medicare, end birthright citizenship. He didn't do it. He didn't even do a legislative action. And DACA, he didn't do that. He did try to do it, but the court ruling prevented it. And so the program remained in place. So he actually ran into some legislative battles there. Let me see. Let's think of the next one. I had some with Obama, I'm pretty sure. Affordable health care. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. I have a lot of facts. Don't worry. I'll come back to it. I just want to look at something. I probably should have went local because, quite frankly, that's where I get frustrated. And honestly, I spoke a little bit about Lloyd Smucker and his promise to us to just respect our vote. That probably bothers me the most. But we know cowardice comes in different forms, and where this got triggered. I'll wrap. I'll bring it wrap back around. Sorry for that lull. Where it got triggered was watching Mitt Romney get on and say about Donald Trump and this whole affair that's going on, literal the affair and the trial. He made the statement that Biden made a mistake because he should have pardoned Trump. He said, this is just a big deal. Trump looks like he's like, I would have done it because I would have looked like the big guy. And when he said that, that's a couple days. When he said that, it just kept on rubbing me the wrong way. And I just felt like people always hold Mitt Romney up like he's the strong guy. He's going against his party. And to me, he epitomizes cowardice. He kind of walks the line. He knows Trump's horrible. He probably voted for Trump the first time. We know that he stood by Trump on a lot of things and he kind of waffled. And then for him to say he would have pardoned Trump because it would have made him look better. Again, that's not the strong position. The strong position would be to say, no, let the law, let the Justice Department, if they have a case, let them bring the case and let the courts decide. Why be the big person? Because he's a coward. And so even the folks that we kind of put it and we hoist up and say, look at him, he's going against his party. Bullshit. I was happy to see him vote against the impeachment, but that's about it. He hasn't done anything against women's rights. He's in fact actually pro-life. He's a coward and he knows better. And by the way, any man that says they're pro-life knows better. That's none of their business. So I call them cowards anyway. You're a coward by default. It's none of your fucking business what a woman's doing with their body. So to say you're pro-life, it's really fucking none of your business. It's none of your business. It's stupid. So you're already a coward. So Mitt Romney, coward off the gate. Not only that, but his positions when he comes out and steps in, it's usually because Donald Trump's so far off and the party's so far gone, he looks reasonable. Same with the guy with the eye patch. I don't know his name. And I'm not making fun of the fact that he fucking only has one eye. But that guy kind of counters his party and he looks like he's some strong man when he votes 95% of the time with his own party. And then every now and then he speaks out like, oh, I'm standing up. But he's a Trumper. These folks aren't strong. They go with the flow. They do what's politically correct. And so it's easy to see even Mitt Romney when he hoists himself up and says, oh, I would have done the big thing and I would have pardoned Donald Trump because it would have made me look better. So making you look better, you took that knowing that's the coward way. What the strong way, the brave thing to do would be say, I don't really give a fuck what I look like. What's the right thing to do? And people say, well, you can't get elected if you do that. Okay. Then you have one term. We have one term people where they get a lot of shit done. And we just fucking have people just living and laying it down. This is one of the reasons I lean heavily on having more women in office besides Marjorie Green Taylor level. I feel like if you look at the legislative backing from women, they hold their promises more often than men. I'll have to provide some data to back that, but it's what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing when I did my little research. Look, if you're looking for data, fucking that's going to be on the podcast. I'll have to do a follow up. This is my rant. This is my soliloquy, my monologue. Trying to stay focused here. I was triggered by Mitt Romney's cowardice. I wanted to talk about the nuance of cowardice and why sometimes it's not just cowardice. Sometimes these guys and gals can't get things done because of other reasons. And I started out the podcast or the live stream, whatever you're listening on. I started out talking about those things because it's important to have that nuance to say, you know what, our system sucks sometimes, and it's not always the fault of the politician. But when I listed out those things, two of them stand out: lack of political will. What's the other one? Electoral calculations. So lacking the political will is a wishy-washy thing. Making an electoral calculation is straight up lying. Feasibility is cowardice. You didn't fucking think about it. Stupid. Judicial interventions. Okay, you can't deal with that one. Economic constraints. Fine. Complexity of the legislative process. I mean, you got to start breaking heads in there. And I feel like that's one thing LBJ did that was known. He was known for is he went in there and just physically threatened people. He was a domineering man of large stature. So he used that to his advantage, apparently, to browbeat people into doing things. And I wouldn't lie. I wouldn't have a problem fucking walking into and physically walking into people and saying, what the fuck? I would be an asshole. I'm not joking. I'm not saying I would like grab or assault people, but you know, I don't mind getting in someone's face just to say it. And by the way, I'm pitching this again. I'm using me because I want you to understand. You should think about yourself. And as you watch these folks lie and squirm, think about what you would do. And sometimes when they're lying and squirming, they're doing it to save face. And other times they're not lying and squirming. And it's actual problem. There's problems with the legislative process. But they should be honest about that. They should explain that. So when I say me, I don't want people to get the wrong impression that I'm even considering. Not even. I really want to grow this fucking channel and podcast. And I know tonight's not one of my best nights as far as filler words and pauses, but we're doing it. We came on late. We got rounded corners. We know what that's going to do for the live stream. Gangbusters. All right. So we kind of went through those initial reasons of why somebody might have trouble getting something done or why they might not be able to keep their campaign promises. This, again, I'm going to point out, this is all important because this is a reason for you young folks to think about why you should continue to vote for the party in power, at least, especially if you're trying to negotiate with foreign policy and have a consistent foreign policy. This is not the time to sit on the sidelines if you're a young person wanting change in Gaza, wanting things to be different in the Congo. Put a new party in power. We're going to wait. We're going to wait. We're going to wait. Keep the pressure on this party in power. Keep them in power. Keep the pressure on. That's how you get it done. Okay? That's how you get it done. And I'm not saying that just because Trump's awful, but Trump's fucking awful for many reasons. But the campaign promises for Israel and those things that come with Gaza and Congo, those are one of those what I didn't talk about in this list, which I would call institutional things that you can't fight. They're so big that if you want to oppose, let's just say randomly you want to oppose the Israeli government for what they're doing, let's say that's a suggestion that you want to take or a position you want to take, That's a very, very risky position to take because there's a lobby that speaks volumes and owns and bought and paid for most of Congress, both sides, equal opportunity. So you're going against a huge lobby. And not only that, there's the moniker of anti Semitism that can be thrown around really quickly. And I'm not saying on this show our position. I think I've made it clear. But if you're in office and you make those positions, you can. But if you're a Republican, it's difficult to take a position against the Israeli government. If your entire party aligns with them for whatever reason, and it's a stalwart ally, no matter what, you have to start thinking, no matter what, is that really what it is? I mean, would you say that no matter what for anything in your life, no matter what to anything? That's questionable to say about anything, right? So, but that's one example. I don't want to go into the topic too deep. That's a perfect example where you could have a position and the sum of the whole thing is greater than just your little part in this. And so it's difficult to systemically change that. What I love is what the youngsters are doing. And in order to make systemic change, sometimes you have to ripple the system a little bit. You have to wreck it. Rosa Parks didn't just get on the bus and sit in the front just because she thought it would be okay. Like she knew that would cause a ruffle, and she didn't want to sit in the back of the bus. It wasn't convenient, but it was going to cause a ruffle. And protesting is never going to be easy. So I'm pro protesters. I told you I'd do a podcast live about that. Yes, it's inconvenient. I wouldn't like it if I was traveling or if I was on campus or whatever. It'd be inconvenient, but that's what protests do. I think it's a valid argument to say, look, your inconvenience is just minute compared to someone's life ending constantly. These are women and children. That's their argument. So keeping the pressure up can help avoid cowardice, can force their hand when you have cowardice. And cowardice can be systemic. Cowardice can be institutional. The fear of things that they don't understand. And we could just say, oh, this is the way it is. So we just never look at how things could change. And I know I'm speaking in meta terms here, but think about that. When you start griping and bitching and moaning and looking at those people and blaming somebody else, these things we've created, and some of these things we've never questioned. A lot of these things we don't question. We don't question it enough. We just vote for the same party no matter what. We vote for the same fucking person no matter what, without pressure. We make it easy for them. They're public servants. We should not physically harm them. We shouldn't threaten their lives, but we should always threaten their jobs. We should always threaten their jobs. Their jobs should be threatened every single fucking time they're up for election. There should be a challenger to that person, vetting that person, making them sweat for it. We don't do that. I mean, you can look at the ballot locally and see there's empty slots. Democrats don't even throw people into certain slots. I mean, hell, people write me in as jokes. I kid you not. I know the Representative Sterler wrote me in one year as sheriff. I'd make a hell of a sheriff, folks. If you want to do a write-in campaign for that, that's what I'll run for. Sheriff. Give me a badge and a gun. There's a lot of reasons for why laws don't get done and why things don't change and why a politician runs on something and doesn't get it done. Excuse me. There are many reasons. Some of them are under their control, but the ones that really irk me are the ones that just don't require a spine. And we know what those are. You can say that your position changed if maybe you get new data. If you get new data and your position changed, great. But if your position changes just because it's not feasible or you've lost the political will, to me, that's bullshit. That's cowardice. And I think that you should literally fall on the sword for it if it's that important to you. And I say this because we don't have enough turnover in our legislator in our legislative branch. We don't have enough turnover, and I know that no politician's going to take my advice right now. But we as people should vote every single fucking election like it's the last election we're going to vote for, even the one that doesn't count, the one in mid every 4 years, the one in between the 4 years, which you don't think about, even our local elections, because part of that will help avoid this bullshit of accountability. If we're not holding ourselves accountable and participating, what the fuck are we holding that? What? How do you think they're going to be held accountable? I mean, if we have 500,000 voters in this county, I don't know what it is, and 65,000 show up every election or whatever that fucking is for Republicans, maybe it's what, 90, maybe we have 300,000 voters and like what, 90,000 show up, a third of the voters show up locally, and then we complain about shit not happening. And this is you also. Oh, I don't want to vote. I don't want to get involved in politics. It's participatory. It requires participation in order for it to work. Like if a lot of people, let's just say 90% of the people decided it didn't work and 10% voted, that would be awful. You would hate it. And I guarantee the 10% would be people that have money. So if you don't have money, find a way to vote. Vote. Because rich people are voting. It's why things don't change. It's why the language is confusing. That's why you get caught up in dumb shit. It's why you get worried about what's going on in the bathroom, because these fucking cowards would rather distract you with bullshit that you can make an emotional or cognitive bias against and not get off your ass and not care about the real issues, which are class issues, which have to do with what you have, what you earn, and who has what resources. That's the real fucking game, folks. That's the game they're playing. They're making us fight for crumbs. There's plenty to go around. This is the whole world. It's the whole world we live in. It's all available for all of us, but we have gatekeepers that make it seem like we got to fight for crumbs. And then we fight about who's going to the bathroom and who's marrying who and all this dumb shit because these fucking cowards can't make good arguments for good policy to get elected. They know it's tough, so they take the easy road and they get us fighting about dumb shit. That's the truth. So those reasons that I listed, sure, there's some legitimate reasons why things don't get done. But the core reason is because they don't lack the courage. They know they might lose their reelection if they stand by their word. Well, fucking lose your reelection. Well, I can't get anything done if well, you lost your word. Now, you can argue that, I'm not talking about things that don't get done because it's not their fault. I'm talking about flip-flops. Mitt Romney's a flip-flopper. We know that. Donald Trump, big flip-flopper, was pro-choice for all of his life until he took the Republican nomination, became pro-life. Big flip-flopper. But this stuff that you and I, that we pay attention to this stuff, if you're listening to me, you probably care about politics, or you just like to listen to me fucking get pissed off, or whatever your point is, or maybe you like watching me lick my lips. I don't know what it is. But you know that we're probably paying attention a little bit more than some other folks. But it really stings. The cowardice really stings when you're kind of paying attention, lifting your head up every now and then. Because you see, oh, wow, there's a campaign ad. You put your head down, you start working. You're going to the factory, you're going to paint, you're going to construction, you're going to the restaurant, you're doing whatever. Sitting behind a desk. And that is when I lost my fucking train of thought. I forget what it was. I was trying to put a point on the... If I look tired today, I'm sorry, folks. That's part of the reason, too. I'm not going to lie. I was on a rant, too. I was trying to talk about the common man, but I forget what it was. It's one of those days. Oh, So let me just wrap because I got my points that I want to close on. That was a rabbit hole anyway. It part of what we have to do is we have to kind of know the difference between what courage is and what cowardice is first. I think cowardice is when they flip flop, when they decide they're not going to do what they're going to do and they take the easy road, even if it's changing their position, even if it's going with their position, they get new data. That would also be cowardice. Anytime they're going against the truth and they're not standing by what's right, and we know what's right. People say, well, what's right depends on who. Look, we know what's right. There's a lot of laws that are passed by rich people. There's no poor people getting laws passed, except for those who are fighting for them, the few and far between that are in Congress that aren't trying to enrich themselves. We got to participate. You got to vote. No matter what your role is, no matter what your position is, you have to participate because they are making policy. They're changing it. They're buying our politicians so that they're going to use and say what they need to do to get elected to you and I, and then do whatever the fuck they want when they get elected because they know they're not going to be held accountable. And so it's not really that cowardice anymore to just go with the flow. We argue that this is the way politicians should act, and they've always acted, but it's because we allow it. We buy their shit. We have short-term memory. We don't hold them accountable. There are different things we could do to make more churn. And people could argue, well, you lose seniority and blah, blah, blah. Okay, the big corner office and yada, yada, yada. That's fucking easy. It's easy. It's easy to figure that shit out. But I wanted to talk about this because it's important. I'm going to be talking more about this as I get into more policy and as I take the podcast deeper and deeper and I make the live more fun, more exciting. We're going to get into some shit and we're going to start calling folks out. I might even have a session where cowardice of the week listed on Thursday, the cowardice act of the week. Big coward. Have a big whatever the symbol for cowardice is. But I want to start talking about that because it's important as I grow this to be more nuanced, and I want to get more nuanced, and that's what's going to happen. I can't just drop F-bombs and get angry and you fucking think that I'm going to get to 1 million subscribers. Ideally, we want to get to 10,000, as I said before. All right, look, I'm not trying to be vain here. That's what the fucking point is. We're trying to grow this so we can yell at more people, shake more minds. But when you're watching the news and you're just checking in occasionally, you look at it, you look down, and then next thing you know, it's election time. And they're talking about campaign promises. You have to dig in. You have to find out what's reasonable, what's possible, what they said to get elected, what you're okay with them saying to get elected. You know, it is a game, folks. It's a game, but you can play the game honestly. I do believe that. And I don't think we've seen a lot of honest politicians all the way through. We certainly have them. They may not stand out because they're not controversial or they get booted out, apparently. I guess I'm going to have to find more data. I guess Joe Walsh left because of his trumping. I just feel like every time they're going to get booted out, they quit. So I don't know how often they lose. I know Al Franken lost his reelection because of some bullshit, but I need more data. All right. What time is it? Let me see how I'm doing. Wow, it went long. I got to close. I can't go more than an hour, else I can't post a TikTok. Listen, I did an interview this weekend. Wild interview. Watch it. I won't say anything more. It was after hours, and it was a gentleman who wanted to come on for a while. He reached out to me. I didn't do a lot of research, had him on. Interesting conversation ensued. And I think it was a entertaining interview. So hopefully he appreciated it. May or may not have him come back on, but he is a self-published author. Go check it out. Again, I will just say it was interesting. No hate, no ill will. I don't know how I handled it. I don't know how he handled it. I don't know what his feedback was, but take a look at it and let me know what you think. Leave a comment. I hopefully didn't slight, or he didn't feel slighted, or I didn't feel slighted. If you watch it, let me know. But I'm going to have more of those, by the way. After Hours is coming up. We've got more interviews coming up. Lots of people all across the spectrum. So make sure you tune in. Before I wrap, I will just make sure I want to put a bow on my issue for the day. Cowardice. Something to keep an eye on. You got to pay attention, folks. And it really comes down to us holding them accountable. If we're not going to vote, it doesn't matter. They can continue to say what they want to say to get elected. And then when they fail us in office, they're just going to count on us not coming to the polls, or they're going to pull out another issue that's going to be distracting you. And then it's going to just say, oh, wow, this person's great. I just got to vote for him this because this thing's now more important than this other issue. Is it a priority of issues? Sure. Let's just start with, I've given us a framework. I've talked about this. Start with the basics. Food, shelter, clothing, identity. Those are the things that are important to people. Autonomy, safety. If we can, those are universal things. It's not that hard. So if you start looking at things through that lens, it's pretty easy to figure out what the right thing to do is. And you can easily see why politicians or when they're being cowards and when they're, faced with real challenges. But I would say that it's also easy to start seeing what our priorities should be. When people start to argue, oh, how do you prioritize things? Well, start with those basics. It's easy to see how you can prioritize. All right, do we need chalkboards or do we need food for people? Okay, we need to make sure people are fed. If that's what's on the chopping block, those kind of things are easy. Security is important, but security is less important than people's food. We need to make sure everyone has food, healthy food, good food, not plastic. Anyway, we'll go through that framework another time, but I wanted to say that hoping to see some more courage. Right now, I'm really scared for the Republican Party. I don't feel like there's enough courage over there. I feel like there's a lot of cowards. I don't feel like there's anyone over there standing up to Donald Trump. Chris Christie has kind of shirked back, kind of pulled a Homer Simpson and went back into the woods. So I just don't see any hope for them. I'm going to have to cut this short. I want a minute or two, so I think I'll be okay. Last but not least, thanks for the follow. I'm going to clean these videos up. Look, I got up my game. I've been looking at YouTube. That's where I've got to land if I want to get the biggest reach, most bang for a buck. It means leveling up, means doing some things more than just green screens with curved stuff with no logos. But I just needed to get on because I literally hit some buttons right before I went on and my green screen turned into green instead of fucking background. Anyway, I got to up my game, folks. So you're going to see me try stuff. This is my learning. I'm still learning. I'm still working on it. I know there are times where I run into design paralysis and chase perfection. I'm blowing past that. Today was one of those days where I'm like, you know what? I'm just going on green screen and everything. I was late, had some weird clicks, and we did live anyway. So we power through. There's a lot of content back there that I'm creating. And by the way, it's a reservoir, a treasure trove of new content that I can slice up. So when I think about all the work that I've done in the 100 videos, you can argue that, I should have a lot more followers on YouTube if I'm doing that much videos. And I agree with you. But there's a lot of content there, and there's a lot of things that I said. And I know sometimes I rant and rave and drop F-bombs and don't make any sense. But as I start doing transcripts, there's a lot of wisdom that I think is valuable, that I find interesting, that I think was proud of saying, if you don't mind me saying myself. So I think I'll share it with the world. And that's part of what we're trying to do, is share my anecdotes, my beliefs, my opinions, and hopefully change minds, change some hearts. Maybe blow some minds, maybe blow some hearts. Who knows? Make sure you tune in tomorrow, Monday through Thursday, 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm losing my tongue twisting. I did okay with the filler words. I definitely dropped some bombs with my words and stumbled on some things, but I'm okay with the pauses. They're easy to fix. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and continue to support me. pokes. I said pokes. Continue to support me and please share, like, comment. Engagement is the money payer. So if you can leave a comment, let me know what you think. Let me know if you think of an example of somebody being a coward, or maybe you find an example of where I'm a coward. Maybe I could be more bold or maybe more vulnerable or something. I don't know. Don't be nice. Just fucking leave a comment. Say something. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll clean it up. We'll get back to getting our green screen back to looking tip top shape. Thanks for checking in, and we'll be back tomorrow at 10:30. Don't forget to check out After Hours. Interesting interview.